If you loved Words of Radiance and you wish you could read it again, then this is the video for you. So I just finished Words of Radiance by Brando and Sanderson, and I just want to talk about what happened. It was so good. If you've been following my channel, then I've been doing a series where I'll read some, talk about it, and then predict what's going to happen next. So much happened here that I'm not going to make any predictions on what happens next. I'm going to do that in a separate video later next week. This one, all I'm going to do is just talk about what happened and pretty much talk about how much I enjoyed it and some of the implications of the things that happened in this book. So let's jump into it. So we are going to go chronologically, and my last video finished up just as we got to part 5, the final part, and I'm going to go chronologically because I just think that's going to be the most fun way to do it so I don't miss too many things. So we have a long awaited moment where Dalinar challenges Amaram in front of Kaladin, humiliates Amaram, lets him know that he believes Kaladin, and then sends him on his way. And it was really satisfying to see Amaram ousted and to be known for the type of man that we know him as, but it's also frustrating to see that he gets to walk away from this and cause problems later down the line. So we discover also that Amaram truly believed in what he was doing, but I don't know if I even believe that. It feels like Brando Sanderson is trying to lure us into seeing Amaram in the same way everyone else does. And someone even says earlier in the book, I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but he was so clean that he must be dirty. Like someone who is always looks that on job and on point must be crooked. And he had the maps inside of his like home and apartment, and he clearly has big plans for the future of the world, and we'll see where he ends up. Another really satisfying thing that has been frustrating me for the duration of the 2 books is Shallan finally tells people about her powers. Same with Kaladin. Like, it's so frustrating when only us and the character know, and we know so many of their problems could be solved by them just sharing. But she tells first Navani and then Dalinar, and they are so accepting. And both of these scenes just show, this one and the one before where Dalinar ousts Amaram, just show what a wonderful man Dalinar is, at least has been so far, and how trustworthy he is. Then we have Kaladin. So Kaladin, when we last left him, was in a sticky situation completely of his own making, where he'd promised Moash and essentially the Ghostbloods that he were going to help to depose Elokar. It becomes apparent that Syl has left him pretty much wholly for that decision. So he decides to change his mind, and we get some incredible scenes where he essentially confronts Moash and confronts the other person whose name I can't remember, who ends up being a Ghostblood as well, to stop them from killing Elokar. And there's a moment where where Kaladin realizes that Elokar is Dalinar's TM, and it's just very emotional. We also get the reveal that Elokar is seeing shadows, and seeing shadows in the same way that Shallan did. So does that mean he's going to become a cryptid? Does that mean he's going to become a radiant? Sorry, it's cryptics that he's seeing. Very possibly. A lot of people are becoming radiant, and I like the reveal that it's broken people that the Spren go for, and if anyone's broken, it's Elokar. He's been seeing shadows and assassins his whole life. So, well, I say his whole life, at least since his father was assassinated, which was like 6-7 years ago. So I would definitely classify him as somebody who's broken. And I know we said, obviously, we had that scene with Kaladin and he's saving Elokar, but that actually comes a bit later down the line. So we'll talk about that in more detail because it's fantastic. But we essentially get the setup for that. And we're all wondering, like, how does Syl return? How is it allowed? And essentially we get the voice of the Stormfather. And the voice of the Stormfather, he says, a daughter disobeys. And we all know, I knew immediately that this was Syl. So Syl comes down, he must speak the next, ideals, stretch his hands out, and then they connect, and it is wonderful because we've been waiting for so long. And honestly, Kaladin had been so, you pity him during that period of time. And when he spends that time with Shallan in the chasms, you see the juxtaposition of how motivated, grateful and excited she is for what she has and where she's going in comparison to where she's been. And then you see Kaladin who is just down in the dumps. He's fumbled his opportunity at having a sprint and becoming a Knights Radiant, and he's really gone back on his words. And to see that turnaround and essentially his gratefulness is huge. So he confronts Moash and the other Ghost Blood. He essentially defeats them, stashes Elokar away, saves him, and then did what I always knew he was going to do. Ever since we had that scene, the scene where he learns to fly was kind of like shoved into the book, it felt like. It didn't feel like it really lined up with everything else that Kaladin had been doing and feeling, but it was a device to allow us to have the next scene where he flew to the battlefield, and obviously magic ensued from there forwards. So I just looked at my notes. It's Graves who's with Moash, and Graves actually works for the diagram, which is Taravangian, which is even more interesting, and we'll talk about that. I mean, I already did a whole video about that, which was my most previous, 2 videos ago. When I read that interlude, it deserved its own video. So yes, he works for Taravangian, which means it's just exciting that there's so many factions involved. You have our main faction, which is essentially the Alefi, Dalinar, and the Knights Radiant. Then you have the Ghost Bloods, then you have Taravangian, and then obviously you have what is going to be in the future Eshonai and her Parshendi, and then her sister's Parshendi as well. It would seem, and that doesn't even include all the other nations that are surely going to get involved as well. So it truly is becoming an exciting and complicated story. So on the back of that, Moash flees. It looks like he's going to be going to work with Taravangian, I believe. For now, I hold a lot of hope for Moash because I think deep down he's a good guy. He has Shard Plate and Blade, so he is going to be a player moving forward. And I feel like he could redeem himself by maybe bringing some of Taravangian's plan and foiling it and bringing that across to our guys. However, Taravangian is easily the most difficult person to hoodwink based on his intelligence levels and the diagram. Who knows, maybe this is even involved in the diagram. So such a tantalizing storyline. And in one of the head notes of the chapter Swallowed by Sky, we're getting different sections of the diagram pop up, and in the diagram it says, "Who is the Wanderer? I draw back from him." And I'm assuming the Wanderer is either Wit or one of the other world hoppers, but it would point towards Wit, and a conversation between Wit and Taravangian, or a battle of wills and intelligences and knowledge of what's going to happen, would be epic. It's something that I'm going to put on my wish list for the next book. And so the battle begins. It's absolutely incredible. And Dalinar steps up to fight Szeth. And Dalinar, he essentially has been feeling guilty the entire time since his brother's death, because he was in a drunken stupor during that time. And he believed that if they had both been there, then he would have been able to save his brother. And he kind of gets a weight off his shoulders, because he realizes when he's battling Szeth that it would not have mattered. There's no amount of shard bearers getting together that could have beaten this person. So it's nice to have that weight lift off Dalinar's shoulders, and he does a great job, and he fights and battles, and Bridge Team 4 is involved, and some of the other shard plate and shard bearers are there, and they all get their butt kicked. Szeth slings Dalinar into the sky to allow gravity to then murder him on the way down, and then cue the arrival of Kaladin. Just before Kaladin arrives, though, we have Adolin, and he's becoming a fantastic leader of people. He defeats Eshonai and kicks her down the chasm. And I think this is a good ending for Eshonai, because it really sets up opportunity for her to become her own Parshendi instead of her own human in the next book. And I think, I don't know who the next book is centered around, but I would guess one of them is centered around her. I think she's going to be a key character, because we've had her perspective a couple of times already. So I think her and her war or battle of wills against her sister is going to be a key storyline moving forwards. And there's absolutely no way she didn't not survive being kicked down the chasm. So Kaladin crashes down, and it was beautiful, the writing was. So he crashes down like a falling star, a blazing fireball of light and motion. Yes, this is one of the things that I predicted was going to happen. He was going to fly across and get involved in the battle, and I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something epic along the lines of when he catches Dalinar coming down, and he says to Szeth, you threw him to the sky and the winds, but the winds are mine, and I claim them, was something along those lines. And you just know it's about to go down, and it does. It goes down in a fantastic manner, one of the best battles, and the training that he did earlier in the book really pays off. So this amazing battle goes down. I got goosebumps during different parts of the battle, and to see, like, Szeth is such a conflicted character. You can tell, like, so much is going on. He's kind of excited to lose and die. He's also just shocked that the Kaladin exists and its implications for the past 7+ years of Szeth's life. So yeah, it's a wild one. Obviously, Kaladin manages to win. He cuts off his arm, severs his connection to what turns out to be an honor blade. And we discover that an honor blade, and there's only 10 as far as we know, an honor blade actually grants abilities and powers to the person holding it. And that is how Szeth has gotten what he's gotten so far. We also discovered during this period of time that the shards are Spren. So it's technically a seal blade that Kaladin has. And it can do a lot more than we first thought. So what it can do is it can appear and disappear when you want it to. It can also change shape and become different things as you're fighting, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other things it does, and that was awesome. It was a fantastic touch, and I had known, if you watch my prediction videos, I'd known for a little while that it was Spren that the blades were made out of, and it ties into the story perfectly, which makes sense because it was planned to tie into the story perfectly. But it was very satisfactory, and watching him battle Szeth, or reading him battle Szeth, with Syl in perfect tandem with each other, understanding what he wants and when he wants it, was so much fun. During this period of time, we have Shallan being awesome, and although she's awesome for a large portion of this book, I don't feel like there's any massive moments in this last section for her outside of the flashbacks. However, what's happening is she is discovering in a very scientific and scholarly way how to get everybody to, and I butcher this every time, Irithyru? I'm gonna go Irithyru, and someone will correct me in the comments. But she does, she gets them there, and it's a fantastic discovery, of course. And along the way, she has many feats of scholarly genius to get them there. One of them also kind of discovering that Renarin is a Radiant. And I have to issue an apology, because initially I believed in Renarin. I even went on video and said, he can't be this useless. Like, there must be something he's really good at. But now it makes so much sense, because every time he was pulling the blade, he was hearing the screaming. Plus, he seems to get visions, and he was the one writing the numbers down. I don't know how I missed that. So I'm looking forward to what Renarin is going to be capable of in the future. But yes, their storyline basically brings them to Irithyru. I will look it up for the next video, which is a magical place. And I'm sure there's so many discoveries to be made there. And that essentially is what saves everybody from the double storm that lands. And some other Radiants pop up as well. So other Radiants that we get is Renarin, but we get Lopen. And Lopen, if I could choose anyone to be a Radiant, Lopen is somebody who deserves it. And I was interested that he became a Radiant, because it would feel like, I don't know much about his background, he lost an arm, which may constitute him being broken, but he just seemed like such a happy and well put together character. He didn't really fit in with the brokenness and trauma of the others, because the others seems to be very deep emotional trauma, and some physical, but mainly emotional, like Kaladin, brother dying, all of his people being murdered for the plate and blade, and then being a slave, and potentially his parents being dead as well. But is his parents dead? I actually don't know. Maybe not. I can't remember. But all of that is very emotional. Some physical. He's been beaten and branded, but mainly emotional. His brother dying, and then his friends being murdered. Shallan, extremely emotional trauma. Renarin, never really fitting in. Being a disappointment to himself and a little bit to his father, even though his father would never admit it, but not the leader that they wanted. And then Lopen is just like the happiest, most well put together dude potentially in the whole book. So it goes to show that either I am missing something massive about Lopen's past, but maybe the criteria extends to just physical trauma as well. And his reaction's amazing. Immediately he tries to find someone so he can stick them to a wall. So good. So during all of this, we get, or maybe just afterwards, we get a flashback, the flashback that I've been waiting for. And we discover that, of course, it was Shallan who killed her dad. We already knew that, but it was also Shallan that killed her mother, and the ghost blood that was trying to kill her mother as well. And I needed that to be admitted, and I'm so glad that Shallan did manage to admit it as well. Now, there's so many implications here. Why were the ghost bloods trying to kill Shallan? I think it's probably because she was displaying the talents of a Radiant. But why was her mother mixed up in them? What was her father doing a bit later on? And I have some great ideas, and these will be in my prediction video for Oathbreaker. But Patton also says that she is going to be the death of him, and he seems deadly certain, and he's fantastic at figuring out patterns. So I wonder how that goes down. Food for thought. But we get a conclusion, or not the conclusion, but a conclusion to the past of Shallan's family. It's one that I would guess everybody saw coming by that point, but it's still extremely satisfactory to have it put on paper. From there, we have Amaran visiting town, and town is mumbling like a madman, because he is a madman. But then somebody tries to assassinate, I think, both Amaran and Town becomes lucid for a very small period of time, and he is freakishly powerful. He manages to catch both of the darts, which is just not something that I don't think any of our other characters would be able to do. So I'm very much looking forward to a lucid Town, and hearing his story, especially of what it was like, and seeing his reunion with the other heralds who left him there to rot. That is something that's on my wish list for the next book, which I said I wasn't going to talk about, but I need it. So I want you guys to know that's something I'm really looking forward to. And speaking of other heralds, we get Szeth meeting with the Azish man. The Azish man who has murdered other people who were about to become Radiance and attempted to get a hold of Windle and the person that he bonded, Lift. That was a great interlude. He is the Herald of Justice, and he loves Szeth's attitude. Szeth is definitely a broken man at this point, and he gives him Nightblood. And at this moment, I just couldn't believe it, because I know there's crossover, right? It's a Cosmere, there has to be crossover. We've seen Wit go from, or Hoyd go from place to place to place, different books. This is the first 100% confirmation of something from another book being in here, and it is obviously from Warbreaker. And in Warbreaker, Nightblood is a menace. It's one of the most interesting, I want to say characters, but really things in the entire book. Kills, wants to provide justice, and it's explained that he was made by, I think it was Shashara and Vasha, or was it Shashara and Demph? I can't remember exactly who made him, but he's a menace. And it turns out not only is he in Warbreaker, but now he's here on Roshar in the Stormlight Archive. I just don't know what this could mean, because the Herald introduced him as an Honor Blade. So is it one of the 10 Honor Blades? So was Nightblood here back when the oath was broken? I don't know. I have some ideas. Again, they're going to be in my prediction video, but that moment brought such a big smile to my face when he says, would you like to go and destroy evil? And it makes so much sense that he was with the Herald of Justice like that. That illogical behavior that Herald of Justice, this man, has shown us, where it's extremely to the letter and follows a code, but wholly illogical in its conclusions for the types of people he was trying to destroy, is just matches up perfectly with Nightblood. So this sets up a redemption arc. Well, not necessarily a redemption arc. It just sets up a different arc for Szeth. I hope it's a redemption arc. And Nightblood's going to be involved, and that is a partnership made in heaven or hell. You decide, but they're perfect for each other. So I can't wait to read that. It was such a good way to end things, and it wasn't even the end. So there's more. During this time, Dalinar bonds the freaking Stormfather. I didn't know that could happen. That's massive. And then we also get Jasnah still alive. This wasn't a surprise. I knew immediately Jasnah wasn't dead when we didn't get a body. So that was obvious. But she links up with Wit. Great link up. And if anybody could try and pick apart or defeat Taravangian with his diagram and intense intelligence of a higher tier above those around him, pulling the strings of the universe to play it to his tune, it would be Jasnah, who is easily the most intelligent and well put together logical character that we have, plus Wit or Hoid, who is above and beyond anybody else that we have. And Hoid lets know that shard blades wouldn't have any effect on him here. It's like the least of his worries. So a little more information on Hoid and his mightiness. And just when we thought we had it all, Sadeas comes to try and twist the knife into Adolin, and he essentially lets Adolin know that he doesn't care that the universe is at stake or the world is at stake. He doesn't care. All he wants is to put Dalinar in the mud and take control of the Alethi, and he'll do it at any means necessary. And I thought this was going to be setting up the next section, the next book, and letting us know that Sadeas is still a player. But Adolin brutally murders him. And it's the cherry on top to Adolin's story so far, where he goes from a naive, noble boy, essentially like all the other Alethi, and he decides and makes these decisions as he goes to not only be a great man, which he is, to be fair, he's someone who honors the codes and lives by his own code, but also he's a man who now does what needs to be done. And it's something that other people probably couldn't have done. Dalinar couldn't have done it. The other Radiance couldn't do it. I don't think that their oaths would allow that. Maybe they would. I don't know about that. But he was the perfect person to do that, and it was such a perfect cherry on top. And will there be repercussions? Almost definitely if someone finds out. But also maybe not, because surely Dalinar is just going to take control. Well, no, because Alokar's still around. But is Alokar going to be a Radiant? Like, there's so many questions that the politics of the Alethi is going to change so drastically. And we'll just need to see if Sadeas is ever, if Adolin is ever discovered to have killed Sadeas. My guess is that he definitely will be. And then how that's dealt with will be very interesting. And there's a million reasons why this is, by the way, this is easily Brandon Sanderson's best work in the Cosmere that I've read so far. And I've read the first Mistborn trilogy, Secret History, Warbreaker, Way of Kings, and then this now. So yeah, it's easily the best book, and for a bunch of reasons. The ending being the main bit, and then the second is the implication. Like, the implication, it sets up the future of this series so perfectly. And there's so much that's going to be happening. Like, what's going to happen with Eshonai and the Parshendi moving forwards? How's she going to deal with her sister? With the Radiance, who else is going to become Radiance? How are they going to learn and develop? And what is it going to be like with Radiance all together, learning and developing together? Like, that's really interesting. How are we going to deal with that? Taravangian, how is his story going to play out and move forward? Like, he's an extremely interesting character, one that probably the one I'm most excited to hear about his future moving forward, and a million other different storylines that are going to come together, like the Alethi politics, the Ghost Bloods, what secrets are we going to find in Eretheru, the city that was just located and discovered, and then the other interludes that have gone down, like the rebellion back in Kolinar. Like, I just feel like the Way of Kings was really good. It was good. But this has put us in a spot where moving forwards, like, anything is possible. Anything is possible. We have so many well-rounded characters and some big discoveries. And now we're going to be doing a lot of discovering with the characters as we go, rather than we were just living with these smaller characters and we were discovering the world that already knew about itself, and now everyone's discovering it with us, the reader, if that makes sense. So 10 out of 10, phenomenal book. If any of the ones after it are even close, I will be a very, very, very happy man. Things I didn't even mention was like the Night Watcher. What an interesting character. Cultivation, where does she fit into all of this? Wit and Jasnah's plan, like, it's just endless. It's endless. So the big question is, what am I going to read next? There were a few different options, but I decided to go with Elantris. So I'm going to read Elantris before jumping into Oathbreaker. And I know Elantris, even said by Brandon himself isn't his best work, I'm excited to see another world and another magic system, and it's kind of short as well, so it'll just be a little palate cleanser before jumping back into Oathbreaker. Please like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can with memberships as well. Other than that, I will see you in my next video for everything Cosmere right now.